Debbie here with Garden Style. So I am sitting here in the shade due to the fact that it has warmed up dramatically just in the last couple of days. We have had 2-3 weeks of just kind of rain, sideways wind, really cold temperatures. And what I mean by cold is it's getting down into the upper 40s at night and barely breaking 60 during the day. So today we consider warm. It actually got up to 76 degrees. I live here in the Pacific Northwest in Washington, and for us that's starting to get warm. And by tomorrow and over the next few days we're going to be in the lower 80s. So I'm not complaining because I know there are a lot of you that are sitting in 90 to triple degree heat right now. And I just feel very blessed that I live here in the Northwest with some cooler temperatures. So anyway, today we're going to talk about some drought tolerant plants. I thought that was an appropriate thing to start talking about as we start moving into summer. In fact, tomorrow is summer solstice, which is fabulous. We're finally there. And did you know that this is the earliest solstice that we have had in 228 years? That's since George Washington. So that's kind of a unique thing that's going on this year, is solstice just comes a little earlier. Now, with that in mind, needless to say, we're going to be picking up the hose and doing a whole lot of watering over these next few weeks. And it will probably continue now, especially here in the Northwest, as we start to enter our dry season. And that just means less and less rain, a whole lot more sun, and a whole lot more watering. So today I'm going to introduce you to 3 or 4 perennials that you can still plant in the ground. I plant perennials practically year-round. But these are some unique varieties, and one of these is new. So I definitely want to introduce you to that. So I'm going to start with this first one. And this one right here, hopefully I can get it up in the camera. This is called a Para-hebe. And it's really neat because its foliage kind of looks like eucalyptus foliage right here. It's kind of a blue-green, and it gets these beautiful purple flowers on it. And once it starts blooming, it will continue to bloom all the way until the first frost. So this is a pretty hardy plant. In fact, it is hardy down to zone 7 or 0 degrees. This plant will take sun to part shade, and it gets pretty tall. It will get maybe 2 feet tall by 3 feet wide, and that's pretty good size for a perennial plant. And the neat thing about it is once it's established, it's extremely drought tolerant. So, feel free to plant it out in the full sun. It can take part shade, but trust me, you're probably going to get a lot more blooms out of it if it's getting at least 5 to 6 hours of sun during the day. It's very long blooming, and it's evergreen, which is a bonus. So this is a new plant for me that I'm going to try this year, and could be for you as well. And of course I'll put the description there so you can see what it looks like, and if you need the name again once the video is over, I'll have it all down below in the description box underneath the more section. But with that beautiful blue-gray eucalyptus foliage, it's considered a xeric plant, or a plant that can be planted out with different types of plants like lavender, cistus, hebe, sedum, carex, phormiums, louisia, and dilosperma. So lots of succulents were included on that, which takes me right into these next few plants that I'm going to introduce you to. This next one, pretty neat succulent, and this is actually considered a stone crop or a sedum, and this one is called Dream Dazzler, and you can see that there is a pink margin on there, and it's getting ready to bloom. You can see when they start sending up these little spikes, it's going to send up some pink blooms. But this is another one, extremely drought tolerant, which most succulents are. But this is part of the Sunsparkler series. There's a whole lot of different sedums that come out in this particular series. This one I really liked because it has that variegated pink margin on the leaves. And this one will probably get maybe 18 inches tall. So this is perfect for the front of the garden, or in a rock garden, on a rock wall, anywhere where it's just really hot and sunny. Now the cool things with sedums is they have these thicker leaves on them, so you can water them once a week, maybe. If you're getting down to where you're getting some rain, or if you have irrigation in the yard, be very careful where you plant these because they hate wet feet. They prefer it dry, hot, and sunny. But this is just one of the Sunsparkler series that I'm introducing you to here. These are extremely hardy, down to zone 4 up to zone 9. So they can be planted just about anywhere here in the United States and manage to live. But its new growth is probably the cool part, because it comes out really, really deep pink, and it'll eventually lighten up to a little bit lighter pink on the leaves. And you don't even need blooms when you have something this colorful. But it will get some nice pink blooms on it here pretty quickly. This one's already getting ready and starting to form some. So that's the first one that I want to introduce you to. That's part of the Sunsparkler series. And this next one, which is all green at the moment, and this one is called Lime Zinger. And the neat thing about this is once it gets more sun, it will also start to get some deep pink margins on it, as well as blooms. This one also blooms. It's considered an evergreen, so it's not going to melt away during the wintertime when it starts to get really cold. This is another one that only gets maybe 6 to 18 inches high. They call it a low-growing and colorful thumb-sized rosettes are olive green with bright red edges. And of course, the more sun it gets, the redder it will get. And it also does this when it gets cold. So it just kind of reacts to the heat. And let's see, it has pink flowers on it. So that's another really neat succulent that you can put in. And you notice how small and rounded the leaves are. So it's a little different from the other one, but it's still part of the Sunsparkler series. That one just happens to be a Lime Zinger. Now the next one I'm going to show you looks almost exactly like a twin, and this one is called Firecracker. And you can see how deep maroon those leaves are there, and I'm going to flash a picture up there of the ones that I currently have sitting out in the garden, and I was amazed at how quickly they started to spread. And again, it stays really short, but as I flash the picture up there, you can see how deep red they get. And that's what I really wanted, was something that can contrast with all the green sitting out there. In this particular garden that I have it in, it's a real hot, sunny garden. I have helianthemum planted in there, which I'll introduce you to as well. I'll cruise up there to the garden and show that to you. And you'll see it in the picture there next to me. But yeah, this is another really cool sedum that turns deep red, and it will get a little bit brighter, a little kind of like a firecracker during the fall as it reacts to the cold temperatures. But I can attest to it. It is evergreen, and it did a really good job holding its own this past winter, especially when we had freezing temperatures down to 13 degrees, and it just did not get above freezing for about 4 or 5 days. It held up really well. I was amazed, without a whole lot of damage to it. And of course, you got to wait a little bit until temperatures start to warm up during the springtime, and all of a sudden it just comes out with this brand new flush of red leaves. So sedums, you can't go wrong, especially in a hot, dry garden that you just can't water a whole lot. They're fantastic. But I wanted to introduce you to 3 specimens out of the Sunsparkler series, because they just keep coming out with new ones, and they just seem to be more colorful. And of course, all of them bloom for a short length of time. And I do make sure to cut the old blooms off, and that way it'll just continue to keep sending out its fantastic foliage. But yeah, even when you're in 80, 90 degree temperatures, those types of plants only need watering maybe once a week, maybe twice if you get really super hot. And they'll tell you when they're drying out. You'll start to see their leaves crinkle up a little bit, and you give them a little bit of water, and by the next morning they're just full and flush. But that's where they store most of their water, is in those thick leaves that you see there. And that's kind of a general rule in the plant kingdom, is the thicker the leaf, the more water it can store, which means you don't have to water it a whole lot. So awesome, another low maintenance plant that stays evergreen throughout the season. Now I saved the best for last, because we brought these into the nursery here. This is a Salvia. Isn't it gorgeous? And this is called Rose Marvel. And what you'll notice as I bring it up real close is the actual flowers on all the individual stems there are bigger than the flowers you normally see on a Salvia. And this one will get about 12 inches tall by 12 inches wide, and it's hardy down to zone 4 to zone 9. And the cool part is it's just a moderate grower. So this is something that I would put directly in the front of the garden. You can just edge the front border with them. And I highly recommend when you find these plants that you just mass them out. But this is a fairly new variety, and each year they keep coming out with more and more of them. The flowers just seem to get bigger. And I love salvias because you can just deadhead them, keep the dead flowers off of them, and they'll just keep blooming for you all summer long. But again, it's a fantastic drought-tolerant plant. Once they're established, they don't require a ton of water. Now here in the Northwest, in order to get salvias, lavender, those types of plants to survive a really wet winter, I highly recommend that you mound them up a little bit, just a couple inches above the surface of the ground, just to increase the drainage down underneath. I do mulch these in the wintertime. I just make sure the mulch isn't touching the stems on the plant. But I do like at least an inch or two of mulch underneath them, not only to help hold moisture in during the summertime, but also keeps weeds down. But also helps to protect their root zones during the wintertime when it can get super cold and freeze. And normally our ground doesn't freeze here, but still a little extra protection is always good. So this one is Rose Marble, and when they came in, they were in full bloom like this, and I was awestruck. They are just absolutely gorgeous. So what a nice contrast. I'm going to put these in between some other salvias and some geraniums that I have sitting out in the yard that are a blue. So we'll have this blue-pink theme going along the front of the border, and I can't wait to get more. I only bought 3 today and brought them home just because I want to test drive them for a season, see how they do. And if I'm really impressed and I really like how they do, then of course I will continue to buy more to help fill up this really hot sunny border that I have during the summertime. So anyway, there's some plants for you to try out during the summertime when it gets really super hot. I hope all of you have had a fantastic spring and summer so far. I've had to skip a week in my videos due to my mother having to go through a small procedure, but she's fine now. For those of you who've been following me for a while, I've had my 88-year-old mother move in with me, and so I'm kind of looking after her and looking after the business and trying to look after the garden all at the same time. And needless to say, there's been a lot of appointments just to make sure that her health is okay. And she just has a little bit of a mobility problem, and I think we figured out what that problem is, and she should be going into surgery here in a couple of weeks because we got great results from this procedure that she had done. So anyway, that's what's going on in my personal life and why I had to skip a week here and not go over plants. I've got someone else in the family who's needed my attention. And she's as sweet as can be, and I can't wait till she's really mobile, and then I'll definitely introduce you guys to her because she was the one who gave me the bug to get started in gardening. All right, you guys, of course, if you have any comments or questions, leave those in the description box down below. You can also take advantage of our newsletter at sunnycrestnursery.com or send me an email to gardenstylenwest@gmail.com. Start sending me in some of your questions. I'm going to have some more Q&As during the month of July, because as we start moving into the warmer, hotter months, our planting slows down, but some other things start to pick up, and I'll definitely be going over July to-do list in my Grow More in 24 series, and along with other things. But I can tell you what has been keeping me really busy now is keeping perennials trimmed. I've also been trimming out trees that are just, beyond excessive, trimming those back. I've gotten all the lilacs trimmed, rhododendrons are getting trimmed. So that's kind of what it's about, other than watering as we start to move into the hotter months, is just keeping things deadheaded, trimmed, watered. I'm going to give everybody one last fertilizing as we go into July, and then it's a good idea to back off fertilizing. You don't want to keep encouraging more new growth as you start getting closer into, can't believe I'm saying this, the fall months. So hanging baskets and annuals, of course, I fertilize those every other week just to keep them moving. I've already started trimming some of my petunias, as well as trimming off the bottoms of my hanging baskets, because they start to get a little leggy as they've bloomed and bloomed and bloomed. So give them a haircut. Don't hesitate to cut off those long stems where it has one bloom at the end. Trim those up to the bottom of your hanging baskets, and they'll just continue to keep sending out new growth. And of course, that always goes for perennials as well. So anyway, with that note, I hope you guys are staying cool out there, and of course, keep those hands dirty, and we'll talk soon. Bye for now.